Hey guys, it's Andy. Welcome back to my channel. So on Twitter, I did a poll and asked if you guys would prefer to see mid-month wrap-ups and then end-of-month wrap-ups for me. Honestly, when you read a lot of books, doing a really long wrap-up at the end of every month gets to be a chore. Then I feel like I don't remember half the books the way I want to be able to talk about halfway intelligently. So we'll see if this makes any difference. Thanks to the 12 people that did vote. Everyone said yes, do the mid-month wrap up. So this is what you get. As of filming this, it is the 15th of December, so it is halfway through the month, and so far I've read 12 books. And as usual, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about them in the order I read them. The first book I read was Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. This was my book club's pick for the month of December, and I'm so glad I finally started this series. I know I'm way late to the train, but now I'm obsessed and already have the next book checked out from the library, ready to read soon. This is a YA fantasy, and it takes place on the island of Finburn. So basically in this world, every queen gives birth to triplets, and the three girls live together until they're like 6, I think it was, and then they're separated, sent to different lands based on whatever gift they have. So you have an elementalist, which controls the 4 elements, a naturalist, and then a poisoner. And they also talk about the war gift, which I hope we get to see more of what that's actually about. And was there any other gifts? I think sight or something. There might have been one more. I'm glad I listened to this on audio because the names are pronounced different than they look. Like, so we have Katerine, but it's spelled like Catherine. And then Arsinoe, which it's spelled like Arsino. So Katerine's the poisoner, Arsinoe is the naturalist, and then Marabella is the elementalist. So you already knew Katerine had to be my favorite because she's a poisoner and she has a pet snake that she named Sweetheart. The way this book is written, it's in like third person omniscient, so you get inside everyone's head at some point, and there are a ton of characters. Luckily, each chapter is titled for like where it takes place, so you know what town you're in at least. So that took some getting used to, and I had to go back so that I had everyone straight in my head. But once you get into it and this world is set up, it's so good. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars because it did take a while to get into, but it ends on some cliffhangers, and I'm so ready to continue with this series. If you haven't already checked it out, which I think a lot of people have already read this, it's been around for a while. The final book just came out like a month or 2 ago. Then I picked up Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw, and she is the author of The Wicked Deep, so this is her sophomore novel. And if you don't know, I loved The Wicked Deep and gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I'm definitely due for a reread of that. I went into this with slightly lower expectations because I'd heard some not so great reviews, but I absolutely adored this. I counted it for the prompt of to read a contemporary for the Magical Readathon because it takes place in the Muggle world. It's not a fantasy world, but there are like fantasy elements. So whatever, I counted it, I made it work. But this follows Nora, who is one of the Walker witches. They live in this small, secluded town near the Wicker Woods. And Nora is a finder. She goes into these woods and finds lost objects, and you can only go into the woods on the full moon because that's when it's sleeping. So one full moon, she is in the woods as she does and finds this boy who turns out to be named Oliver. And this book alternates between Nora and Oliver's point of view. And there's also little snippets of Nora's family's spell book throughout, which was really cool too. I loved how atmospheric this was. It definitely put me into the wintertime mood. I love how Earnshaw weaved together some like fantasy and witchy elements. And then also this was basically a good old-fashioned like mystery whodunit type of situation, because she finds Oliver and doesn't know how he survived in these woods, and then she finds out that another boy from the boys' camp across the mountain has died, so trying to figure out what happened there. And this book also had a lot to say about loneliness and like choosing to be alone versus like letting people in and all that, which I really loved. 5 out of 5 stars, phenomenal book, definitely gonna be in my top of 2019. Then I read 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston. This was the group book for the 'Tis the Season-a-thon, and I also read it for the Reindeer-a-thon prompt of Read a Romance book. This is a YA contemporary romance following our main character, Sophie. And in the very beginning of this book, she hears her boyfriend at a party talking about how he wants to break up with her. So she says, "Skirt," and dumps him. And then ends up spending the holidays at her grandparents' house. So her family takes it upon themselves to set her up on 10 different blind dates. And this was so cute and so funny. Some of these dates are outrageous. 100 Hands Harold, if you read this, you know. If you haven't read it, you should read it because it's really good. This was a really good holiday read with some really cute romance and a lot of pop culture references. There was a lot of Game of Thrones things popping up toward the end of this book here. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. Next up was Let It Snow by Lauren Miracle, John Green, and Maureen Johnson. I read this for 'Tis the Season-a-thon for read a book with snow on the cover and read a book related to music, because obviously Let It Snow is the name of the song. So this is 3 short stories that kind of intertwine and intersect at some points, and it was alright. John Green's story was the worst one. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. It was whatever. Nothing really like was horrible and like I hated and I couldn't stand, but it was just like not great. The movie on Netflix, however, was much better. Still not like a favorite, but I thought it was a lot cuter and well done and was more diverse. So yeah, if you haven't already read this book, you can skip it. Then I picked up Charmed Magic School by Katie Rex, and this was a wonderful gift to me from Leah, so thank you again. I read this for the Reindeer-a-thon for the prompt of Read a Graphic Novel, and this was good. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, mostly because of like the whole Charmed and nostalgia factor. Loved seeing Piper, Phoebe, and Paige. But this story follows Delia, who is a new witch and ends up going to this magic school to learn how to control her powers and all that jazz. This was a super fun story, and if you are a Charmed fan, go ahead and give it a shot. The Christmas Sisters by Sarah Morgan is one of the picks for the first month of Olivia Reads a Latte's Buddy Read. The Twitter for that is Buddy Reads a Latte. So I was super excited to see that, and of course I had to jump on the bandwagon and participate. This follows 3 sisters, Hannah, Beth, and Posey. The 2 sisters, Hannah and Beth, live in New York while Posey still lives with her family in Scotland. And this follows the 3 sisters and their family during a Christmas where they all get together in Scotland. I'm pretty sure Hannah was my favorite and the most relatable. And while this did have some romance in it, there's definitely no smut, and it's basically more of like a family drama and dynamics kind of book. And I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. You should definitely check this out for this time of year. It's basically like a really good Hallmark movie, but like better than a Hallmark, you know? Then I finally picked up The Lost Coast by Amy Rose Capetta. I've had this checked out of the library forever and been meaning to get to it. This is another one of those that is like reads contemporary but also is fantastical, so kind of that middle ground there. This follows our main character, Danny, and she moves to a new town and discovers a new group of friends that calls themselves the Greys. And it's basically a bunch of queer witches. And we have some women of color, so love that for this book. Upon meeting the Greys, Danny learns that one of them, Imogen, has disappeared. And they kind of make it Danny's job to locate her. I enjoy the diversity and all the witchiness of this book, but sometimes found the plot to move a little slow, or then like all of a sudden a bunch would happen and I'm like, wait, what? So the pacing was just a little off to me, but overall I really did like this and gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And this author does have another book published called Echo After Echo, and I don't really know anything about it, but I'd be interested to check it out and see if I feel the same way. You could compare this to Winterwood as far as it being a really like witchy, atmospheric, woodsy book, but like Winterwood did it better. But this was still good. Let's talk Girls Made of Paper and Fire by Natasha Young. This was the book that covered all the prompts for the Bookie Trials Winter Quest, as well as the Vixen prompt of Strong Female for the Reindeer Readathon. And I also read this for 'Tis the Season-a-thon for the prompt to read a book while enjoying a holiday snack. This follows our main character, Lay, who is taken from her hometown and brought to the royal court to be a paper girl for the king. And paper girls are humans that are basically the king's consorts. Definite trigger warnings for sexual assault, murder, you know, that kind of thing. In this world there are 3 classes. As I mentioned before, paper is human. The steel class are half human, half demon, and the moon class are all the way demon. Lay is chosen to be a paper girl because she is a human with golden eyes, which is very unusual and thought to be beautiful. While she's at court, she meets another paper girl named Ren, and they form a relationship, and that was the best part of this book. Overall, I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. While I really did enjoy it, it wasn't the best, and I know you have to do some world building, especially in the beginning of a fantasy, but some parts kind of jug out a little too much, and I feel like stylistically some things could have been written a little better. But Young did have a way of pulling you into this world and caring for the characters. And I'm hooked and already have the second book thanks to Layali, and I'm excited to get to it really soon. Yeah, I finally did it. I finally read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It has taken me forever to finally get around to this. I read this for the Reindeerathon prompt, which is to read a book that's moved around on your shelves for a while but you haven't read yet. This story follows our main character, Santiago, on his quest to Egypt to find his treasure. This is a big life lesson in the form of a story, pretty much. There's a lot of elements of the law of attraction in here and finding your own personal destiny, and that basically you control the outcome of your life when it comes down to it. I did really enjoy this and tabbed up some parts that I found to be impactful. Now, saying all that, it still wasn't perfect, and some of it felt a little preachy, but I guess that's kind of the point. I don't know. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I liked what it had to say, and it's definitely something that I will look back on at some points and pull information from, which is why I'm glad I did end up tabbing it. And it's super quick to get through. I don't know why it took me so long to finally read. Trying to get into the wintry Christmas mood, I decided to pick up One Day in December by Josie Silver. Now, a lot of people absolutely adore this book and really scream its praises, but I felt kind of so-so about it. It follows our main characters, Lori and Jack. The novel takes place over the span of years. The very beginning of the book, Lori sees this man across the way and they lock eyes and it's like love at first sight or whatever. and they never meet up again. It was like one of those lost connection type things. Then years later, Lori's best friend, Sarah, brings Jack to the house as her new boyfriend. So instead of telling her best friend, like, oh my god, that's the bus guy, she doesn't say anything, and then Sarah and Jack are in a relationship for a long time. And then, like, Lori and Jack don't even acknowledge to each other that they know who the other is as well. Just the whole, like, no communication thing kind of kills me. But I do see how a lot of people like this. It was alright. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't hate it, obviously. If I hated it, it would get like a 1. A middle of the road kind of slow burn, takes place over years kind of romance. If that's something you're into, give it a shot. Then I read this book, The 10th Girl by Sarah Faring. That's just right off the bat gonna be one of my most disappointing reads of 2019. This is a YA fantasy paranormal. Basically it takes place on the most southern tip of Argentina at this boarding school called the Vaquero School. And our main character, Mavi, decides to be a teacher there to escape some political flashback and her mom's death. And then you get alternating chapters between Mavi and then a character named Angel who was written to be a ghost from the modern world. So Angel's chapters take place in present day, and then Mavi's chapters take place in the 1970s. And there was a lot of like spookiness and atmosphere at this school, and it had so much promise and could have been really good. I don't know. Then at some point I just stopped caring about anything that was happening, unfortunately. The plot twist at the end was one of the most disappointing, dumbest kind of reveals I've ever read, I believe. And that's just me. Like, you may absolutely love it and the ending like skyrockets this book for you and you're totally into it. And that's really all I can say without giving away a bunch of spoilers. Yeah, I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. And we save the best for last, The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. I read this for Reindeer-a-thon for the prompt of read a book with a beautiful cover. And this book is stunning, honey. Oh, gorgeous. Big shout out to Leah for gifting this to me. This has 6 short stories, fairy tales that take place in the Grishaverse. And this was so cool. Each story kind of melded together different fairy tales and legends and kind of spun them on their heads and made them into something beautiful. I think the very first story, Ayama and the Thornwood, and the last one, When Water Sang Fire, were my absolute favorites. But this book overall is just beautiful inside and out. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. Well, those are all the books I've read so far this month. Let me know what you think about this setup of me doing a wrap-up mid-month and then at the end of the month. This was a lot less daunting to film, and I like it a lot better. I think I'm going to enjoy editing it better. Comment down below and let me know what your favorite book you've read so far this month is. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Thank you guys so much for helping me get to 200 subscribers. I'm so happy. Bless you. I'm so excited about it and I can't thank you guys enough. Now, I'm super excited to see what 2020 will bring to my channel. Well, and as always, my social medias will be linked down below. Go ahead and be my friends on some other platforms. Follow me on Twitter. Follow my Instagram. Check out some other videos I've made, which I think are pretty cool. And until then, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!